Don't forget to subscribe. Afterwards, the wisest and most spiritual books from the greatest authors await you every day. And now buckle up, sit back and we'll begin. The Tibetan Book of the Dead. Chapter 6. The Guidebook to the Betweens. The Prayer of the Reality Between. O Amitabha, boundless light of the truth body, O mild and fierce beatific body lotus deities, O Padmasambhava, incarnate savior of beings, I bow to the three bodies in the spiritual mentors. The Sanskrit name Amitabha means boundless light. He is the Buddha of the Western Buddhaverse known as Sukhavati, and the Lord of the Lotus clan of Tantric archetype deities. In this invocation, he is associated with the truth body, the aspect of Buddhahood associated with ultimate reality. The lotus deities themselves are associated with the beatific body, the subjective, transcendent wisdom aspect of Buddhahood, and Padmasambhava represents the incarnational emanation body. Thus the practitioner salutes at the outset the spiritual teachers as embodiments of the three bodies of Buddhahood. In this spot, modern practitioners should substitute an invocation of whatever trinity, duality, or unity they hold most sacred and helps them feel most comfortable and secure. This great natural liberation through understanding is the art that liberates average practitioners when they go through the between state. Preliminaries. Implementing the practical instructions that teach the art of liberating beings, those of greatest ability will surely be liberated. If they are not, they should practice the natural liberation through soul transmission in the death point between. Soul transmission, Tibetan Pho Ba, is a contemplative practice through which advanced yogis and yoginas can voluntarily leave their bodies by ejecting their subtlest consciousness out of the top of their heads and transmitting it into a Buddhaverse, or pure land. They learn to do this by receiving initiation into this art, then practicing through long retreats, the alignment of consciousness and the subtle neural energies. The natural liberation mentioned is a version of this practice associated with our text, not usually published because it would be dangerous to practice without initiation. The practitioners of average ability will surely be liberated by that. If they are not, they should strive to implement this great natural liberation through understanding during the reality between. To that end, first you should examine the situation with a systematic death analysis, according to the natural liberation through death signs. This natural liberation is published with our text. It provides a lore of omens, dream interpretation, and medical insight that helps a person foresee the danger of death in specific situations. When the signs of death are clearly complete, you should employ the natural liberation through soul transmission. If soul transmission succeeds, it is unnecessary to read this book of natural liberation. If it does not succeed, you should read this book of natural liberation clearly and distinctly, sitting beside the body. If the body is gone, then you should sit at the bed or seat of the deceased. You should invoke the power of truth, summon the soul, visualize the deceased as sitting in front of you listening, and read this book of natural liberation. During that procedure, it would be very disturbing if the loved ones and relatives were to weep and lament. They should be quieted. If the body is still there, during the time when the outer breath has ceased but the inner breath has not, the dead person's teacher, fellow disciple, or trusted and beloved relative or friend should read this book of natural liberation, with lips not quite touching the ear. Using the book of natural liberation. It is not necessary, in fact it would be confusing, to read aloud for the deceased, The many instructions intended for the readers of the Book of Natural Liberation. Thus, you should read aloud the indented sections set in boldface type. The instruction parts of the text tell you how and when to read them. You should make extensive offerings to the three jewels. If you cannot afford it, you should set up whatever symbolic offering you can afford, and then visualize limitless offerings. You should then recite 3 or 7 times the prayer help from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Then you should accurately and melodiously recite the prayer's refuge from all terrors of the between and deliverance from the straits of the between, and the root verses of the 6 betweens. Then you should read 7 times or 3 times, or as the occasion permits, this great book of natural liberation through understanding in the between. The 3 jewels are the Buddha, his teaching, and the holy community. The text is recommending setting up an altar with an icon or statue of the Buddha, and perhaps a copy of a Buddhist book to represent the teaching. Offerings consist of water in little cups, flowers, incense, a candle or other light, and so on. Even without any physical objects, you can visualize a whole arrangement, offering universes full of things of beauty to all enlightened beings. If you or the deceased have a different religion, set up an icon, symbol, or text that represents the sacred, and think of offerings traditional in that religion. If you or the deceased have no religion, think of a favorite environment of the deceased and adorn it symbolically or imaginatively in a way that would please and attract the deceased. The prayers mentioned are included in Chapter 5. Recognition of the clear light in the death point between. The clear light is an indescribable transparency, a light that is omnidirectionally illuminating yet beyond the brightness of sun or moon, and also beyond dimness or darkness. The text uses the terminology of betweens in a somewhat confusing way. This section is called the prayer of the reality between. The death point between is also one of the 6 main betweens, considered different from the reality between. The death point between again is divided into 2 betweens, one called reality clear light death between and the other unnamed. The first occurs when the deceased's consciousness is still held within the central channel of the deceased's subtle nervous system, while the second occurs just after the consciousness has left the body through any path other than the crown of the head. So I have called these 2 the central channel reality clear light death point between, and the out-of-body reality clear light death point between. Both of these occur quite soon after the cessation of breathing, the first immediately after. They are extremely crucial times when you wish to intervene to assist someone to have a successful detransition, ideally into a state of conscious liberation, or at least into a positive, enlightenment-oriented realm, such as a Buddhaverse or Pure Land. For at the death point every being, especially a human being, has the ideal opportunity to discover real freedom from addictive habits, delusive perceptions, and misleading conceptions. Therefore, in Tibetan culture it is considered important to help a loved one through the actual process of death, to avoid distracting and frightening places such as hospital emergency rooms, and to arrange circumstances where the assistants can stay with the body at least for some hours. For the sake of clarity, I have omitted from the translation the Tibetan subject headings, which enumerate topics far ahead in the text to orient the reader. The central channel reality clear light between is used in at least 3 senses here, which causes a slight confusion. It is used in its basic colloquial sense of the whole period between death and rebirth. It is used in its technical sense in between yoga and the main set of the six betweens: life, dream, meditation, death point, reality, and existence betweens, where the last three are subdivisions of the colloquial between. And it is used in this text in the sense of phase of a between, where the experience of a particular period in one of the six betweens is itself called a between. Thus, in the death point between, there are the two clear light betweens, and in the reality between, there are the mild deity between and the fierce deity between, each of these being divided again into several days. I have simplified this by calling the third usage of between phase, and by occasionally omitting the casual use of the term. You should use this natural liberation with all types of persons, some who have good understanding, but have not yet recognized the clear light, some who have recognized it, but have not developed that recognition with practice, and even some ordinary egocentric individuals who lack any instruction. Once they recognize the objective clear light, they will attain the birthless body of truth by the straight upward path, without going through any between. The power of the teaching of this natural liberation is noted here. The consciousness is so flexible in the between state that the mere understanding of reality can transform the whole structure of delusion, and liberation can occur instantaneously. As for the use of this natural liberation, it is best if you can bring to the bedside the main mentor of the deceased, from whom he has received instructions. If you cannot bring her, then spiritual brothers or sisters with the same commitments will do. If they cannot come, then a spiritual teacher of the same spiritual lineage will do. If he cannot come, then any person who can read this text accurately and distinctly should read it many times. When the deceased is reminded in this way of the mentor's description, there is no doubt that she will recognize the objective clear light and will instantly be liberated. The Tibetan language rarely uses pronouns during such instructions, since the third-person subject is included in the verbal form, without differentiating the gender of the person. While it is true that male spiritual teachers are more numerous in Tibet, there are female mentors, or lamas, as well. And of course death is no respecter of gender, and the deceased is as often female as male. If I simply use the male pronoun all the time in English, it makes the Tibetan seem more sexist than it is. If I use he or she, him or her all the time, it makes the flow of the language clumsy. So I have chosen to alternate male and female pronouns loosely when giving general third-person descriptions. As for the time to use the natural liberation, after the outer breath ceases, the neural winds dissolve into the wisdom central channel, and the consciousness arises distinctly as the unfabricating clear light. That is when the natural liberation should be used, before the winds reverse themselves and escape through the right and left channels, and the visions of the between arise invitingly. After the outer breath has ceased, the inner breath remains within the central channel, just for the time it takes to eat a meal. Again, as for how to use it, it is best if one can succeed in soul ejection when the breath is just about to cease. If this does not succeed, you should say this: "Hey, noble one, you named so and so. Now the time has come for you to seek the way." Just as your breath stops, the objective clear light of the first between will dawn as previously described to you by your teacher. Your outer breath stops and you experience reality stark and void like space, your immaculate naked awareness dawning clear and void without horizon or center. At that instant, you yourself must recognize it as yourself, You must stay with that experience. I will describe it again to you at that moment. The standard instruction for recognizing the clear light is as just given. The natural liberation through naked vision in Chapter 8 is a much fuller description of this type. Awareness is clear and contentless, infinite and stripped of all structures, seeming free of all point of subjectivity or sense of objectivity. The difficulty of recognition comes from the habit momentum of feeling present as a subjective perspective, hence feeling fear or faint at losing the sense of holding on. That is why the instruction urges the deceased to identify with the infinite transparency, to recognize it as the essential selfless self. Before his outer breath ceases, you should repeat this in his ear many times, in order to plant it firmly in his mind. Then when the outer breath is just at the point of stopping, place him in the lion posture, his right side on the ground, and squeeze the pulsing waves in the blood vessels of the neck. Press them strongly, cutting off pulsation in the two sleep channels in the neck. Then the winds will enter the central channel and will not be able to reverse, and his soul will definitely exit up the path of the Brahma hole. Clearly, judging the moment exactly right as the breath ceases is a very tricky business, requiring an expert touch and timing, not to be casually attempted by anyone. The Brahma hole is where the soft fontanelle aperture is located on the fore of the crown of the head. The soul embodied in the subtle energy life drop exits there through understanding the natural liberation, in the same way it ejects in the practice of soul ejection. Then one should again read the description. This moment is called the first between reality clear light. An unerring realization of the body of truth arises in the process of all beings. Further, during the time the inner breath abides after its duration is uncertain, depending on the quality of the individual's life and her degree of cultivation of the neural winds and channels. It can abide for a long time in those who have considerable practice. For those who are great sinners or have blocked channels, this time will last no longer than a finger snap. For some others it will last the time of eating a meal. As for how to do it, if the deceased has the ability, she should develop her resolve from beforehand. If she cannot do it herself, then her teacher, her disciple, her spiritual brothers or sisters, or like-minded friends, should sit nearby her. They should then pronounce the signs of dissolution in order. Now this mirage you see is the sign of earth dissolving in water. This smoke is the sign of water dissolving into fire. These fireflies are the sign of fire dissolving into wind. This candle flame is the sign of wind dissolving into consciousness. This moonlit sky is the sign of consciousness dissolving into luminance. This sunlit sky is the sign of luminance dissolving into radiance. This dark sky is the sign of radiance dissolving into immanence. This pre-dawn twilight sky is the sign of immanence dissolving into clear light. The text only mentions the signs of mirage and so forth. I have restored the full description of the 8 subjective signs of the 8 dissolutions, because these signs are so important for the deceased to recognize, giving her a sense of orientation in a new and strange realm of unfamiliar experiences. When those signs are about to culminate, you should remind the deceased of his conception of the spirit of enlightenment. If the deceased is a spiritual teacher, you should gently say, "Venerable teacher, please act on your spiritual conception without wavering." I translate the Sanskrit bodhicitta as spirit of enlightenment and bodhisattva as spiritual conception. It is the spiritual attitude that distinguishes a bodhisattva, a messianic hero or heroine who lives to save all others from suffering. It is a messianic resolve to become perfectly enlightened in order to be capable of saving others from suffering and bringing them to happiness. It is, for a bodhisattva, the logical outcome of love and compassion toward beings, combined with the wisdom about their real situation and about the infinite horizon of interconnectedness between self and others. Tibetan psychology considers paradoxically that this selfless attitude is the best guarantee of a good destiny for the self. Hence it is crucial to remind the deceased of his or her spiritual conception at this moment. If the deceased is a spiritual companion or any other person, call him by name and say the following. Hey, noble one. Now you have arrived at so-called death, so you should conduct yourself according to your conception of the spirit of enlightenment. You should conceive your spirit of enlightenment thus. Alas! I have arrived at the time of death. From now, relying on this death, I will develop my spirit only by contemplating the conception of the spirit of enlightenment of love and compassion. For the sake of the whole space full of beings, I must attain perfect Buddhahood. And especially you should think, now for the sake of all beings, I will recognize the death-clear light as the body of truth. Within its experience, I will attain the supreme accomplishment of the Great Seal, and I will accomplish the purposes of all beings. If I don't attain that, then in the time of the between, I will recognize it as the between. I will realize that between is the Great Seal body of integration, and I will accomplish the purposes of all the infinite space full of beings by manifesting whatsoever is needed to tame whomsoever. Thus, never losing the willpower of that spiritual conception, you should remember the experience of whatever instructions you have previously practiced. I render the Sanskrit Mahamudra as Great Seal. This expression refers to ultimate reality as the ultimate lover, experiencing voidness as a total mental and physical union between oneself as orgasmic bliss, with the impassioned consort of the infinitely expansive intimate wisdom of universal voidness. Like the expression great perfection, it refers to the ultimate as approached by the most advanced adept of tantric contemplative practice. This should be clearly enunciated with the lips near the ear. In this way, not allowing even an instant's distraction, you should pray for the deceased to accomplish this practice. Then, when the outer breath has ceased, you should press the sleep channels at the neck forcefully and say the following. First, to a spiritual teacher or spiritual superior. Venerable teacher. Right now the objective clear light dawns for you. Recognize it. Please incorporate it within your experience. You should describe it to all others as follows. Hey, noble one, you named so and so, listen here. Now the pure clear light of reality dawns for you. Recognize it. Hey, noble one, this, your present conscious natural clear void awareness, this presence in clear voidness without any objectivity of substance, sign, or color, just, this is the reality, the mother, Buddha all around goodness. And this, your conscious awareness natural voidness, not succumbing to a false annihilative voidness, just your own conscious awareness, unceasing, bright, distinct, and vibrant. Just this awareness is the Father, Buddha all around goodness. Just as presence of the indivisibility of your awareness is naturally insubstantial voidness, and the vibrant bright presence of your conscious awareness just, this is the Buddha body of truth. Your awareness thus abides in this vast mass of light of clarity void indivisible. You are free of birth or death. Just this is the Buddha changeless light. It is enough just to recognize this. Recognizing this, your own conscious awareness's purity nature as the Buddha, yourself beholding your own awareness, that is to dwell in the inner realization of all Buddhas. All-around goodness translates the Sanskrit name Samantabhadra, with its male and female forms. All-around goodness is the famous divine bodhisattva of the Flower Garland Sutra, the Samantabhadra, who has developed the interpenetrating samadhi so highly that he can multiply all his good actions infinitely throughout the micro and macrocosms, for example, consciously bowing in miniature subatomic bodies in subatomic universes to subatomic Buddhas at the same moment he bows in the ordinary universe to the Buddha before him. The Buddha's Samantabhadra father and mother represent the inconceivable ultimate dimension itself, the body of truth, the experience of which is the eternally blissful union of bliss awareness and transparent reality voidness. The identification given here resembles the expressions of the word initiation, the great fourth initiation, considered the highest of the esoteric initiations in the unexcelled Yoga Tantras. The nature of the reality evoked is such that it is not created, not attainable by any effort, because it is never lost, it has been beginninglessly present to enlightened awareness. Thus there is no progression into the realization of its presence. One is instantly liberated by the mere understanding of the identification. You should repeat this 3 or 7 times, clearly and correctly. With the first repetition, the deceased will remember her spiritual teacher's previous description. With the second repetition, she will recognize her own naked awareness as the clear light. With the third repetition, recognizing her nature, she will become the body of truth, free of union and separation, and will definitely be liberated. Thus, recognizing the first clear light, the deceased will be liberated. The out-of-body reality clear light, however, if one doubts and does not recognize the first clear light, again the second clear light dawns. As for its timing, it comes a little longer after the outer breath has ceased than it takes to eat a meal. By the good or bad impulses of evolution, the wind is released into either the right or left channel and escapes through one or the other bodily aperture. Then consciousness emerges in the clear path of the between. Again, though the time is described as the time it takes to eat a meal, this depends on the nature of the deceased's channels and their degree of cultivation. At this point, the deceased feels his consciousness emerge out of the body, but he does not recognize the situation, worrying instead, "Have I died or not?" He still feels as if connected with his loved ones. He hears their weeping. Before his intense evolutionary hallucinations arise and his full terror of death arrives, you should again use the instructions. There are various versions, those for the perfection stage practitioner and those for the creation stage practitioner. For the perfection stage practitioner, you call him by name 3 times, and then repeat the clear light orientation just given above. If he is a creation stage practitioner, you should read the meditation literature and the visualization practice of whichever was his archetype deity. Then pray as follows. Remember that you are still at the bedside of the deceased, whose consciousness now has emerged from his body and is floating precariously around the room. This period probably begins around a half an hour after the breath has completely stopped and can continue for several days. In Tibetan culture, therefore, it is considered desirable to keep the body without disposal for several days, though this is impossible in warm climates due to decomposition. The bodies of highly adept lamas are often reported to stay sitting immobile for several days without decomposing in a normal way. The perfection stage practitioner has cultivated the energy channels of the subtle nervous system, untangled its knots, and developed a familiarity with subtle interior and out-of-body states. So the clear light is directly identified for him or her. The creation stage practitioner has developed strong expertise in visualization, and the archetype deities and their mandala sacred environments are highly familiar, their forms and structures having subliminally cultivated the winds, channels, and drops of awareness. So for them, the instructions should bring them back to the archetype deities with which they feel secure and open. Hey, noble one. Meditate on this your archetype deity. Don't be distracted. Aim your intense willpower toward your archetype deity. Meditate it as a parent, but realityless like the moon in water. Don't meditate it as material. If the deceased is an ordinary person, orient her as follows. Meditate on the Lord of great compassion. The ordinary person here means one who has no systematic practice of either visualization or transformation into altered states of physical energies or consciousness. However, her participation in a culture is itself a visualization and transformation process, a routinization of imagination and perception. If she is religious, her long-term familiarity with a particular god, goddess, savior, or prophet will make that being into an archetype deity for her. If she is not religious, her familiarity with specific political leaders, celebrities, national symbols, or other persons or places will have turned them into archetypes or mandalas for her. The text invokes the Lord of Great Compassion, the archangelic bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, the savior figure for any participant in Tibetan culture, a powerful deity who looks out for all living creatures, helping them avoid suffering and discover happiness. You may prefer to invoke Jesus here, or Moses, Muhammad, Krishna, or Wakantanka, Aten, Zeus, or the Great Mother in any of her myriad forms. Any archetype of sacredness, any compassionate personification or representation of ultimate reality, here serves to make the soul's consciousness feel secure and integrated with the gracious presence of sacred ultimacy. This is necessary for her not to fear any hallucinations or startling happenings, and to move toward positive destinies. It is also considered that the imagined figure of any of these great saviors serves as an icon to focus awareness to make the soul receptive to the active compassion of those beings themselves. Thus orienting them, there is no doubt that even those who have never recognized the between will recognize it. Further, those who in life had a mentor describe the between to them, but gained only slight familiarity through practice, will not by themselves be able to become lucid in the between. They must have a spiritual teacher, loved one, or friend evoke it for them. And those who are likely to be reborn in the horrid states, who previously gained familiarity with and insight into the path, but then lost their vows or destroyed their basic commitment, for them this is extremely necessary. The consequences of breaking vows and commitments on the part of one who has achieved some degree of insight into the path are very grave. This is not because of some punitive tendency in the tradition. It rather is due to the fact that one who enters the path to some degree begins to attain a level of freedom from inner instinctual drivenness and becomes more open. Their potential life energy thus becomes more malleable and flexible as their horizon opens all the way to Buddhahood and evolutionary perfection. If they then get radically turned around toward evil or the dark side as it were, their expanded horizon has now come to include extremely negative, hellish states, and they may find themselves in great danger. If the deceased succeeds in understanding in the first between, it is best. If he has not succeeded, then when reality is evoked in the second between, awareness is awakened and he is liberated. Here, when instructed in the second between, his awareness, previously unsure if he has died or not, suddenly becomes clear. This is called the impure magic body state. At that time, if the instruction succeeds, mother and child realities meet and evolution loses its power over him. It is like sunlight conquering the darkness. The path clear light conquers the power of evolution, and he is liberated. The magic body, remember, is the consciously constructed, dream body-like, subtle energy body created on the third stage of the perfection stage. Here, due to the power of the teaching, the evolutionarily constructed subtle body of the between state is transformed by instantaneous clarity of understanding into the third stage impure magic body. This intense acceleration of evolution toward Buddhahood is possible because of the great malleability and transformability of the soul and its subtle embodiment in the between state. The mother reality is the objective clear light, the actual transparency of ultimate reality, directly experienced beyond the subject-object dichotomy, called mother, because of her being the matrix of all possibility. The child reality is the semblant clear light, transparency still filtered through conceptuality, targeted by an accurate conceptual understanding, retaining still an instinctive sense of subjectivity and objectivity. It is the level of clear light experience that fits with the impure magic body presence. When it develops into the mother clear light, the magic body becomes purified, the supreme union between father magic body and mother, clear light becoming the unexcelled integration, the great seal, the great perfection, the evolutionary consummation that is Buddhahood. Once more, what is called the second between dawns suddenly before the mental body, and the consciousness wanders within the range of hearing. At that time, if this instruction is given, its aim will be achieved. At this moment, the evolutionary hallucinations have not dawned, and he is capable of any sort of transformation. Thus, even if he failed to recognize the objective clear light, still he can recognize the second between clear light, and so can reach liberation. The mild deity reality between. Each between phase and day begins with the suggestion that one carry on with the reading of the Book of Natural Liberation, in case the deceased is still not liberated. Each previous section has ended with statements about how surely the deceased will be liberated by the understanding of the preceding instruction. An expert lama or spiritual mentor, one with direct clairvoyance, is considered easily able to monitor the progress of the soul of the deceased. The rest of us should probably keep going, preferring to err on the side of overdoing than failing to provide an opportunity for the deceased. If the deceased is still not liberated, it is then called the third between phase. The reality between dawns. This becomes the third between, in which the evolutionary hallucinations dawn. Therefore, it is crucial to read this great orientation to the reality between at that time, with its very great power and benefits. At that time, her loved ones will weep and wail, her share of food is no longer served, her clothes are stripped off, her bed is broken. She can see them, but they cannot see her. She can hear them calling her, but they cannot hear when she calls them. So she must depart, her heart sinking in despair. Perceptions arise of sounds, lights, and rays, and she feels faint with fear, terror, and panic. Then you must use this great description of the reality between. You should call the deceased by name and clearly and distinctly say as follows: "Hey, noble one." Listen unwavering with intense concentration. There are 6 kinds of between: the natural life between, the dream between, the contemplation between, the death point between, the reality between, and the emergent existence between. Hey, noble one, 3 betweens will dawn for you: the death point between, the reality between, and the existence between will dawn. Until yesterday, in the death point between, the reality clear light dawned. But you did not recognize it, so you had to wander here. Now the reality between and the existence between will dawn for you. As I describe them, you must recognize them without fail. Hey, noble one. Now you have arrived at what is called death. You are going from this world to the beyond. You are not alone, it happens to everyone. You must not indulge in attachment and insistence on this life. Though you are attached and you insist, you have no power to stay. You will not avoid wandering in the life cycle. Do not lust. Do not cling. Be mindful of the 3 jewels. Hey, noble child. Whatever terrifying visions of the reality between may dawn upon you, you should not forget the following words. You must proceed remembering in your mind the meaning of these words. Therein lies the key of recognition. Hey! Now when the reality between dawns upon me, I will let go of the hallucinations of instinctive terror, enter the recognition of all objects as my mind's own visions, and understand this as the pattern of perception in the between. Come to this moment, arrived at this most critical cessation, I will not fear my own visions of deities mild and fierce. This verse comes from the root verses of the 6 betweens. The deceased here has entered into the dreamlike world of the between and is not yet used to the ghostly senses of the between. To his or her heightened sensitivity, sights and sounds can have a startling intensity. Further, the underlying instincts can emerge from the subconscious easily and quickly, and can color any experience with intense moods, either of terror or joy. Our instincts are so patterned after fear of harm and the expectation of pain that we tend easily to paranoia. This fearful state in the between can itself create distressing manifestations. Should we give ourselves to such terrors, we would become more and more tied up in knots of defensiveness, would close down our sensitivity more and more, and would inevitably descend into the sea of patterns of negativity. Therefore, the verse serves to remind us of the urgent necessity not to give in to fear, but to see through it and remain open and at ease. You should proceed clearly saying this verse aloud and remembering its meaning. Do not forget this, as it is the key to recognizing whatever terrifying visions dawn is certainly being your own perceptions. Hey, noble one. At this time when your mind and body are parting ways, pure reality manifests in subtle, dazzling visions, vividly experienced, naturally frightening and worrisome, shimmering like a mirage on the plains in autumn. Do not fear them. Do not be terrified. Do not panic. You have what is called an instinctual mental body, not a material, flesh and blood body. Thus whatever sounds, lights, and rays may come at you, they cannot hurt you. You cannot die. It is enough just for you to recognize them as your own perceptions. Understand that this is the between. Hey, Noble One. If you don't recognize them as your own perceptions in this way, whatever other meditations and achievements you may have experienced in the human world, if you did not meet this particular instruction, the lights will frighten you, the sounds will panic you, the rays will terrify you. If you don't know the key of this instruction, you will not recognize the sounds, lights, and rays, and you will wander in the life cycle. The first day. The text does not place this label here, beginning to label in this way only below when it inserts the second day. I have added it for clarity and to keep you oriented in terms of your use of the book in actual cases. Below it tells the deceased he has been unconscious for 4.5 days, precisely 108 hours. The precise time does not matter so much, as you can fruitfully read these between instructions on the days immediately after death, and you can continue for up to 49 days. In the day sequences that follow, you reach into the mandala or sacred environment of the universe, as structured by the Buddha wisdoms. You invoke those 5 wisdoms personified by the 5 lords of the Buddha clans, Vairocana and so on. See figure 10, this page. Each one emanates with qualities and attributes that align with the elements and processes of the ordinary universe of suffering, representing their transmutation into the Buddhaverse, or Pure Land reality, where love, compassion, bliss, and wisdom are the dominant energies of life. Similarly, each manifestation parallels the appearances of the 6 realms of worldly migration, heavens, hells, and worlds of titans, humans, animals, and pretans. This is in order to help souls not to seek embodiment in those ordinary, driven life states, but rather to bring them into a more ideal, enlightenment-oriented environment where they can proceed more swiftly toward liberation. In reading the sequences, just try to imagine the general colors, lights, and overall qualities of each archetype. Do not worry about trying to fix every detail in exact order, or it can become distracting. Those who feel uncomfortable with the Buddhist imagery should substitute in its place the figures or symbols that give them comfort. For one artist's vision of the look of these 5 deities, and all of them in tableau together, see color insert, plates 5, 6, 7, and 8. Hey, Noble One. Having fainted for 4.5 days, you are now proceeding. You have woken up with the worry, what is happening to me? Recognize that you are in the between. Now, since the life cycle is in suspension, all things dawn as lights and deities. All space dawns full of azure light. Now, from the central Buddha land, all-pervading drop, the Lord Vairocana appears before you, white-bodied, sitting on a lion throne, holding in his hand an 8-spiked wheel, united with his consort Akashadatpashvari. The natural purity of the consciousness aggregate, the blue light of the reality perfection wisdom, a clear and vivid color blue, frighteningly intense, shines piercingly from the heart center of this Vairocana couple, dazzling your eyes unbearably. Simultaneously, the soft white light of the gods shines upon you and penetrates you in parallel with the bright blue light. At that time, influenced by negative evolution, you panic and are terrified of that bright blue light of reality perfection wisdom, and you flee from it. And you feel a liking for the soft white light of the gods, and you approach it. But you must not panic at that blue light, the clear, piercing, brilliant, frightening, supreme wisdom clear light. Do not fear it. It is the light ray of the transcendent Lord, the reality perfection wisdom. Feel attracted to it with faith and reverence. Make it the answer to your prayer, thinking, "It is the light ray of the compassion of Lord Vairocana, I must take refuge in it. It is the way Lord Vairocana comes to escort you through the straits of the between. It is the light ray of the compassion of Vairocana." Don't be enticed by the soft white light of the gods. Don't be attached to it. Don't long for it. If you cling to it, you will wander into the realm of the gods, and you will continue to cycle through the 6 realms of driven existence. It is an obstacle to cessation, the path of freedom. So don't look upon it, but be devoted to the brilliant penetrating blue light. Aim your intense willpower toward Vairocana, and repeat after me the following prayer. When I roam the life cycle driven by strong delusion, may the Lord Vairocana lead me on the path of the clear light of reality perfection wisdom. May his consort Buddha Dattashvari back me on the way, deliver me from the dangerous straits of the between, and carry me to perfect Buddhahood. Thus praying with fierce devotion, you dissolve in rainbow light into the heart of the Vairocana couple, whence you will enter the central pure land Ganavyuha, dense array, and become a Buddha by way of the body of perfect beatitude. The cosmology invoked here is that the 5 Buddha mandala is connected to the ordinary universe as a set of Buddha lands, universes built up out of enlightenment energies, with one in the center and one in each of the 4 directions. The verse recited comes from the prayer for deliverance from the straits of the between. If you substitute a Jesus figure accompanied by a host of angels, it would still be good to preserve the sense of centrality, the type of wisdom involved, the fact that this archetype should be the transmutation of the consciousness process and the addiction of delusion, the need at this point to turn the attraction towards the heavens into the aspiration to enter a Buddha land, and the colors of the lights. The second day. It might happen that, even though you provide this orientation, because of his faults of anger, sins, and blocks, the deceased fears the light ray and flees. Though he prays, he still errs. Then on the second day, the Vajrasattva deity host and the negative evolutionary impulses leading to hell approach to escort him in their different directions. Here, calling upon the deceased by name, you should orient him as follows. Hey, noble one. Listen without wavering. On this second day, the white light that is the purity of the element water dawns before you. At this time, from the blue eastern pure land of Abharati, intense delight, the blue Lord Vajrasattva Kshabhya arises before you seated on an elephant, carrying a 5-pronged Vajra scepter, in union with his consort Badalachana, attended by the male bodhisattvas Kshitigarbha and Maitreya, and the female bodhisattvas Lasya and Pushpa, a group of 6 archetype deities. The white light of the mirror wisdom, purity of the form aggregate, white and piercing, bright and clear, shines from the heart of the Vajrasattva couple before you, penetrating, unbearable to your eyes. At the same time, the soft smoky light of the hells shines before you in parallel with the wisdom light. At that time, under the influence of hate, you panic, terrified by that brilliant white light, and you flee from it. You feel a liking for that soft smoky light of the hells, and you approach it. But now you must fearlessly recognize that brilliant white, piercing, dazzling clear light as wisdom. Be gladdened by it with faith and reverence. Pray, and increase your love for it, thinking, it is the light of the compassion of Lord Vajrasattva. I take refuge in it. It is Lord Vajrasattva's shining upon you to escort you through the terrors of the between. It is the tractor beam of the light of the compassion of Vajrasattva. Have faith in it. Don't be enticed by that soft, smoky light of hell. Hey, that is the path of destruction from the sins you have accumulated by your strong hatred. If you cling to it, you will fall into the hells. You will be stuck in the mire of unbearable ordeals of suffering, without any escape. It is an obstacle to the path of liberation. Don't look upon it, and abandon all hate. Don't cling to it. Don't long for it. Have faith in that dazzlingly bright white light. Aim your intense willpower toward Lord Vajrasattva and make the following prayer. Alas! When I roam the life cycle driven by strong hate, may the Lord Vajrasattva lead me on the path of the clear light of the mirror wisdom. May his consort Bidalachana back me on the way. Deliver me from the dangerous straits of the between, and carry me to perfect Buddhahood. By praying in this way with intense faith, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart of Lord Vajrasattva, and you will go to his eastern pure land Abharati, and attain Buddhahood in the body of perfect beatitude. The third day. Even though they are so oriented, some people of persistent pride and sinfulness will fear the tractor beam of the light rays of compassion and will flee from it. Then on the third day, the Lord Ratnasambhava deity host and the light path of the human realm come to escort them. Here, calling upon the deceased by name, you should orient her as follows. Hey, noble one! Listen without wavering. On this third day, the yellow light that is the purity of the element earth dawns. At this time, from the yellow southern Buddha land of Shrimat, the yellow Lord Ratnasambhava appears seated on a fine horse, carrying a precious wish-granting gem, in union with his consort Mamaki, attended by the male bodhisattvas Akashagarbha and Samantabhadra, and the female bodhisattvas Mala and Dupa, a group of 6 Buddha deities, in a background of rainbows, rays, and lights. The yellow light of the equalizing wisdom, the purity of the sensation aggregate, yellow and piercing, dazzling and clear, adorned with glistening drops and droplets, shines from the heart of the Ratnasambhava couple before you, penetrating your heart center, unbearable to see with your eyes. At the same time, the soft blue light of the human realm shines before you, penetrating your heart in parallel with the wisdom light. At that time, under the influence of pride, you panic and are terrified by that brilliant, energetic yellow light, and you flee it. You feel a liking for that soft blue light of the human realms, and you approach it. But at that time you must fearlessly recognize that brilliant yellow, piercing, dazzling clear light as wisdom. Upon it place your mind, relaxing your awareness in the experience of nothing more to do. Or again be gladdened by it with faith and reverence. If you can recognize it as the natural energy of your own awareness, without even having to feel faith or make prayers, you will dissolve indivisibly with all the images and light rays, and you will become a Buddha. If you do not recognize it as the natural energy of your own awareness, then pray and increase your love for it, thinking, it is the light ray of the compassion of Lord Ratnasambhava. I take refuge in it. It is the tractor beam of the light rays of the compassion of Lord Ratnasambhava. Have faith in it. Don't be enticed by that soft blue light of the human realms, for that is the path of destruction from the sins you have accumulated by your fierce pride. If you cling to it, you will fall into the human realms. You will experience the suffering of birth, sickness, old age, and death, and you will find no time for liberation from the life cycle. It is an obstacle blocking the path of liberation. Don't look upon it, and abandon all pride. Abandon its instinct. Don't cling to it. Don't long for it. Have faith in that dazzlingly bright yellow light. Aim your one-pointed willpower toward the Lord Ratnasambhava and make the following prayer. Hey! When I roam the life cycle driven by strong pride, may the Lord Ratnasambhava lead me on the path of the clear light of the equalizing wisdom. May his consort Buddha Mamaki back me on the way, deliver me from the dangerous straits of the between, and carry me to perfect Buddhahood. By praying in this way with intense faith, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart of the Lord Ratnasambhava couple. And you will go to the southern Pure Land Shrimat and attain Buddhahood in the body of perfect beatitude. If the deceased recognizes the equalizing wisdom in this way, there is no doubt that even the weakest-minded will be liberated. The fourth day. However, even if you orient them many times thus, ill-fated persons such as those who were very sinful and those who have lost their vows, still do not succeed in recognizing their reality. Disturbed by passions and sins, they fear the sounds and lights and flee from them. So again on the fourth day the Lord Amitabha deity host and the dull light path of the passion and avarice created Pretan realm come to escort them in their directions. Here, calling upon the deceased by name, you should orient him as follows. Hey, noble one! Listen without wavering. On this fourth day, the red light that is the purity of the element fire dawns. At this time, from the red western world of Sukhavati, the Red Lord Amitabha appears before you seated on a peacock throne, carrying a lotus, in union with his consort Pandaravasini, attended by the male bodhisattvas of Avalokiteshvara and Manjushri, and the female bodhisattvas Gita and Aloka, a group of 6 Buddha deities, in a background of rainbows and lights. The red light of the discriminating wisdom, purity of the conceptual aggregate, red and piercing, dazzling and clear, adorned with drops and droplets, shines from the heart of the Amitabha couple, precisely penetrating your heart center, unbearable to see with your eyes. Do not fear it. At the same time a soft yellow light of the Pretan realm shines before you, penetrating your heart in parallel with the wisdom light. Do not indulge in it. Abandon clinging and longing. At that time, under the influence of fierce passion, you panic and are terrified by that brilliant energetic red light, and you want to flee it. You feel a liking for that soft yellow light of the Pretan realms, and you approach it. But at that time you must fearlessly recognize that brilliant red, piercing, dazzling clear light as wisdom. Upon it place your mind, relaxing your awareness in the experience of nothing more to do. Or again be gladdened by it with faith and reverence. If you can recognize it as the natural energy of your own awareness, without feeling faith, without making prayers, you will dissolve indivisibly with all the images and light rays, and you will become a Buddha. If you do not recognize it as the natural energy of your own awareness, then pray and hold your aspiration for it, thinking, it is the light ray of the compassion of Lord Amitabha. I take refuge in it. It is the tractor beam of the light rays of the compassion of Lord Amitabha. Have faith in it. Don't flee it. If you flee it, it still will not leave you. Don't fear it. Don't be enticed by that soft yellow light of the Pretan realms. It is the path of the instincts of the sins you have accumulated by your fierce attachment. If you cling to it, you will fall into the Pretan realms. You will experience the intolerable suffering of hunger and thirst, and it will be an obstacle blocking the path of liberation. Without clinging to it, abandon your instinct for it. Don't long for it. Have faith in that dazzlingly bright red light. Aim your one-pointed will toward the Lord Amitabha couple and make the following prayer. Hey! When I roam the life cycle driven by strong passion, may the Lord Amitabha lead me on the path of the clear light of the discriminating wisdom. May his consort Buddha Pandaravasini back me on the way. Deliver me from the dangerous straits of the between and carry me to perfect Buddhahood. By praying in this way with intense faith, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart of the Lord Amitabha couple, and you will go to the western Pure Land Sukhavati and attain Buddhahood in the body of perfect beatitude. It is impossible for the deceased not to be liberated by this. The fifth day. However, even so oriented, by influence of extremely long association with animal instincts, not abandoning instincts, under the influence of envy and negative evolutionary actions, the deceased may still feel anxiety and fear the sounds and lights, and may still not be picked up by the tractor beam of the light rays of compassion. Then, on the fifth day the Lord Amagasiddhi deity hosts compassion light rays, and the addictive envy light path of the Titan realm, come to escort him. Here, calling upon the deceased by name, you should orient him as follows. Hey, noble one! Listen without wavering. On this fifth day, the green light that is the purity of the element wind dawns. At this time, from the green northern Buddha land of Prakuta, the green Lord Amagasiddhi appears seated on an eagle throne, carrying a Vajra cross, in union with his consort Samayatara, attended by the male bodhisattvas Vajrapani and Sarvanavaranavaskamban, and the female bodhisattvas Ganda and Nartya, a group of 6 Buddha deities, in a background of rainbows and lights. The green light of the all-accomplishing wisdom, purity of the creation aggregate, green, piercing, dazzling and clear, adorned with glistening drops and droplets, shines from the heart of the Amagasiddhi couple, precisely penetrating your heart center, unbearable to see with your eyes. Not fearing it, knowing it as the natural force of the wisdom of your own awareness, enter the experience of the great unoccupied equanimity, free of attraction to the familiar and aversion to the alien. At the same time a soft, envy-made red light of the Titan realm shines upon you together with the wisdom light ray. Meditate upon it with attraction and aversion in balance. If you are of inferior mind, do not indulge in it. At that time, under the influence of fierce jealousy, you panic and are terrified by that brilliant, piercing green light, and you flee it in alarm. You enjoy and are attached to that soft red light of the Titan realm, and you approach it. But at that time you must fearlessly recognize that brilliant green, piercing, dazzling clear light as wisdom. Upon it relax your awareness in the experience of transcendence with nothing to do. Or again pray and increase your love for it, thinking, it is the light ray of the compassion of Lord Amagasiddhi. I take refuge in it. It is the all-accomplishing wisdom, the light ray of the tractor beam of the compassion of Lord Amagasiddhi. Have faith in it. Don't flee it. If you flee it, it still will not leave you. Don't fear it. Don't be enticed by that soft red light of the Titan realms. It is the path of destruction from the negative evolutionary actions you have committed through your powerful jealousy. If you cling to it, you will fall into the Titan realms. You will experience the intolerable suffering of interminable fighting, and it will be an obstacle blocking the path of liberation. Without clinging to it, abandon your instinct for it. Don't long for it. Have faith in that dazzling bright green light. Aim your one-pointed willpower toward the Lord Amagasiddhi couple and make the following prayer. Hey! When I roam the life cycle driven by strong envy, may the Lord Amagasiddhi lead me on the path of the clear light of the all-accomplishing wisdom. May his consort Buddha Samayatara back me on the way. Deliver me from the dangerous straits of the between, and carry me to perfect Buddhahood. By praying in this way with intense faith, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart of the Lord Amagasiddhi couple, and you will go to the northern Pure Land Prakuta and attain Buddhahood in the body of perfect beatitude. When you thus repeatedly orient the deceased, however feeble his affinity, if he does not recognize one wisdom, he will recognize another. It is impossible not to be liberated. The sixth day. However, even though you orient the deceased repeatedly in this way, still through long association with the myriad instincts and little previous experience with the purified perception of wisdom, even though he is clearly oriented, he is pulled beyond these recognitions by the force of negative evolution. Not held by the tractor beam of the light rays of compassion, he panics and is terrified by the lights and rays, and he wanders downward. Then, on the sixth day, the 5 Buddha couples with their retinues all appear together simultaneously. Here, calling upon the deceased by name, you should orient him as follows. Hey, noble one! Listen without wavering. Up until yesterday, the visions of the 5 Buddha clans appeared to you one by one. Though they were clearly described, under the influence of negative evolution you were panicked, and still up to now you are left behind here. If you had already recognized the natural shining of one of the wisdoms of the 5 clans as your own visions, it would have caused you to dissolve into rainbow light in the body of one of the 5 Buddha clans, and to attain Buddhahood in the body of beatitude. As it is, you did not recognize the light and you are still wandering here. Now, behold without distraction. Now the vision of all the 5 clans and the vision of the joining of the 4 wisdoms have come to escort you in their direction. Recognize them. Hey, noble child! The purity of the 4 elements is dawning as the 4 lights. In the center the Vairocana Buddha couple as described above appears from the Pure Land all-pervading drop. In the east the Vajrasattva Buddha couple with retinue appears from the Pure Land Abhirati. In the south the Ratnasambhava Buddha couple with retinue as described above appears from the Pure Land Shrimat. In the west the Amitabha Buddha couple with retinue as described above appears from the lotus-heaped Pure Land Sukhavati. In the north the Amagasiddhi Buddha couple with retinue as described above appears from the Pure Land Prakuta in a rainbow light background. Hey, noble child! Outside of those 5 Buddha clan couples appear the fierce door guardians Vijaya, Yamantaka, Hayagriva, and Amartakandali, the fierce door guardian goddesses Ankusha, Pasha, Sphota, and Ganta, and these 6 Lord Buddhas. Indrashatakratu, the Buddha of the gods, Vimachitra, the Buddha of the Titans, Shakyamuni, the Buddha of the humans, Simha, the Buddha of the animals, Jvalamukha, the Buddha of the Pritans, and Dharmaraja, the Buddha of the hells. Also appearing is the all-around goodness Samantabhadra Father Mother, the general ancestor of all Buddhas. Altogether the host of the 42 deities of the beatific body emerges from your own heart center and appears to you recognize it as your own pure vision. Hey, noble one! Those pure lands are not anywhere else, they abide in your own heart within its center and 4 directions. They now emerge from out of your heart and appear to you. Those images do not come from anywhere else. They are primordially created as the natural manifestation of your own awareness, so you should know how to recognize them. Hey, noble one. Those deities, not great, not small, symmetrical, each with ornamentation, color, posture, throne, and gesture, those deities each pervaded by 5 mantras. Each of the 5 circled by a 5-colored rainbow aura, with male bodhisattvas of each clan, upholding the male part and female bodhisattvas of each clan upholding the female part, with all the mandalas arising simultaneously. Hold, they are your archetype deities, so you should recognize them. Hey, noble one. From the hearts of those 5 Buddha clan couples, 4 combined wisdom light rays dawn in your heart center. Each extremely subtle and clear, like sun rays woven together in a rope. Now first, from Vairocana's heart center, a cloth of the frighteningly brilliant white light rays of the reality perfection wisdom dawns, connecting to your heart center. Within that light ray cloth, white drops glisten with their rays, like mirrors facing toward you, very clear, brilliant, and awesomely penetrating, with each drop itself naturally adorned with 5 other drops. Thus that light ray cloth is adorned with drops and droplets without limit or center. In this vision, the reality perfection wisdom's light is white, whereas earlier it was blue. Likewise, Vajrasattva Akshabhya's light is switched from white to blue. The interchangeability of these two is a fascinating question. Reality perfection wisdom is sometimes the transmutation of hate, mirror wisdom sometimes that of delusion, usually associated with the consciousness process and the matter process, respectively. And sometimes they are reversed. From the heart of Vajrasattva, the mirror wisdom, a cloth of blue light rays, shines brilliantly upon you, connecting to your heart center, on which shining blue drops like turquoise bowls facing down toward you, adorned by other drops and droplets, all shine upon you. From the heart of Ratnasambhava, a cloth of the equalizing wisdom yellow light rays shines brilliantly upon you, on which golden drops like golden bowls adorned by other golden drops and droplets face down and dawn upon you. From the heart center of Amitabha, the discriminating wisdom red light cloth shines brilliantly upon you, on which radiant red drops like coral bowls facing down to you, endowed with the deep luster of wisdom, very bright and penetrating, each adorned by 5 natural red drops. All these shine upon you, adorned by drops and droplets without center or limit. These also shine upon you, connecting to your heart center. Hey, noble one. These all arise from the natural exercise of your own awareness. They do not come from anywhere else. So do not be attached to them. Do not be terrified of them. Relax in the experience of non-conceptualization. Within that experience, all the deities and light rays will dissolve into you, and you will become a Buddha. Hey, noble one. Since the exercise of the wisdom of your awareness is not perfected, the all-accomplishing wisdom's green light does not shine. Hey, noble one. These are called the vision of the 4 wisdoms in combination, the inner passageway of Vajrasattva. At that time, you should remember the orientation previously given by your spiritual teacher. If you remember that orientation, you will trust those visions, you will recognize reality like the child meeting the mother, or like the greeting of a long familiar person, and you will cease all reifying notions. Recognizing your visions as your own creations, you will trust your being held on the changeless path of pure reality, and you will achieve the samadhi of continuity. Your awareness will dissolve into the body of great effortlessness, and you will become a Buddha in the beatific body, never to be reversed. Hey, noble one! Along with the wisdom lights, there also arise the impure, misleading visions of the six species, namely, the soft white light of the gods, the soft red light of the titans, the soft blue light of the humans, the soft green light of the animals, the soft yellow light of the pretans, and the soft smoky light of the hells. These six arise entwined in parallel with the pure wisdom lights. Therefore, don't seize or cling to any of those lights. Relax in the experience of non-perception. If you fear the wisdom lights and cling to the impure six species life cycle lights, you will assume a body of a being of the six species. You will not reach the time of liberation from the great ocean of suffering of the life cycle. You will experience only trouble. Hey, noble one! If you lack the orientation given in the instruction of the spiritual teacher, and you fear and are terrified by the above images and pure wisdom lights, you will come to cling to the impure life cycle lights. Do not do so. Have faith in those dazzling, piercing pure wisdom lights. Trust in them, thinking, these light rays of the wisdom of the compassion of the blissful lords of the five clans have come to me to hold me with compassion. I must take refuge in them. Not clinging, not longing for the misleading lights of the six species, aim your will one pointedly toward the five Buddha clan couples. And make the following prayer. Hey! When I roam the life cycle driven by the five strong poisons, may the Lord victors of the five clans lead me on the path of the clear light of the four wisdoms in combination. May the Supreme Five Consort Buddhas back me on the way and deliver me from the impure lights of the six realms, delivering me from the dangerous straits of the between. May they carry me to the five supreme pure lands. Thus having prayed, in the best case the deceased recognizes these visions as her own creations, dissolves into non-duality, and becomes a Buddha. In the medium case, she recognizes them through intense faith and becomes liberated. In the worst case, by the power of sincere prayer, she blocks the doors of rebirth among the six species. She realizes the import of the four wisdoms in combination, and she becomes a Buddha by the inner passageway of Vajrasattva. Thus being oriented clearly and in detail, most beings most often will recognize reality and be liberated. The seventh day. However, some sinful people with absolutely no Dharma instinct, dwelling in the most highly uncivilized countries, and some who have abandoned their spiritual vows, will be misled by evolution. Though fully oriented, they will not recognize the truth realm and will wander further downward. On the seventh day, from the pure land of Bedangels, the scientist deity host, along with the delusion-created light path of the animal realm, will come to escort them. Here, calling upon the deceased by name, you should orient him as follows. Hey, noble one! Listen without wavering. On the seventh day a five-colored, rainbow-striped light will dawn to purify your instincts by immersion in reality. At that time, from the pure land of the angels, the scientist deity host will come to escort you. In the center of a mandala wreathed in rainbows and lights, the unexcelled scientist of evolutionary development, Padmanardishvara, will arise, his body lustrous with the five colors, his consort the red angel wound round his body, performing the dance of chopper and blood-filled skull bowl, striking the gazing posture toward the sky. These scientists are great adepts, such as the famous group of 84 from classical India, who have passed from the human realm to special paradises associated with hidden valleys of the Himalayan regions, the pure lands of the Dakini angels. They are associated with speech and, though human in embodiment, have many attributes of fierce deities. They hold in their left hands the skull bowl filled with demon blood and other bodily substances transmuted alchemically into elixir of immortality. In their right hands they hold the scepter-handled chopper knife that symbolizes critical wisdom and cuts into pieces the bones and flesh of ordinary life in order to make it into elixir, just as critical wisdom dissects all appearances of intrinsic substantiality to reveal the elixir of liberating voidness. From the east of that mandala the stage contemplating scientist will arise, white, his expression smiling, his consort the white angel wound round his body, performing the chopper and skull bowl dance, and the gesture of gazing into space. From the south of that mandala the lifespan master scientist will arise, yellow with beautiful signs, his consort the yellow angel wound round his body, performing the chopper and skull bowl dance, and the gesture of gazing into space. From the west of that mandala the great seal scientist will arise, red with a smiling expression, his consort the red angel wound round his body, performing the chopper and skull bowl dance, and the gesture of gazing into space. From the north of that mandala the effortlessness scientist will arise, green and smiling fiercely, his consort the green angel wound round his body, performing the chopper and skull bowl dance, and the gesture of gazing into space. Ranged outside of those scientists, the infinite angel host arises in order to escort the vow-holding devotee and to punish the breakers of vows. They are the 8 death ground angels, the 4 classes of angels, the 3 holy place angels, the 10 holy place angels, the 24 holy land angels, and the heroes, the heroines, and the warrior deities, along with all their defenders, the Dharma protectors. All wear the 6 human bone ornaments, carry drums, thigh bone trumpets, skull drums, human skin victory standards, human skin parasols and pennants, singed flesh incense, and play infinite different kinds of music. They fill the entire universe, rocking, dancing, and shaking, all their musical sounds vibrating as if to split your head open, and performing various dances. The scientist and angel host is composed of the heroic male and female seekers of enlightenment, who have embarked upon the profound odyssey of exploring the underworld of the unconscious, with all its terrors and intensities. They adorn themselves with all sorts of gruesome ornaments, making jewelry from human bones and intestines of unburnt corpses, musical instruments from thigh bones and skulls and skins of animals and humans, and they smear themselves with ashes from funeral pyres. They often hold court in cemeteries or burning grounds, showing their transcendence of death and terror by using as ornament and equipment that which terrifies ordinary people. If understood, they afford security and assistance to the practitioner or traveler in the between. Hey, noble one! Spontaneously purifying instincts in reality, the 5-colored wisdom light striped like colored threads, wound together dazzles, shimmers, and shines steadily, clear and brilliant, startlingly piercing, from the hearts of the 5 scientist lords. It blinds your eyes and penetrates into your heart center. At the same time the soft green light of the animal realm dawns together with the wisdom light. At that time, under the influence of your instincts, you fear the 5-colored light and flee from it, enticed by the soft green light of the animal realm. Therefore, don't be afraid of that energetic, piercing, five-colored light. Don't be terrified. Recognize it as wisdom. From within the light comes the thousand rolling thunders of the natural sound of teaching. The sound is fierce, reverberating, rumbling, stirring, like fierce mantras of intense sound. Don't fear it. Don't flee it. Don't be terrified of it. Recognize it as the exercise of your own awareness, your own perception. Do not be attached to that soft green light of the animal realms. Do not long for it. If you cling to it, you will fall into the delusion-dominated realm of the animals, and you will suffer infinite miseries of stupefaction, dumbness, and slavery, without any time of escape. So do not cling to it. Have faith in that penetrating, bright five-colored light. Aim your will one-pointedly toward the Lord Scientist Master Deity Host. Aim your will with the thought. This scientist deity host with its heroes and angels has come to escort me to the pure angelic heaven. Oh, you must know how beings such as me have accumulated no stores of merit and wisdom. We have not been taken up by the grip of the light rays of compassion of such a five-clan deity host of the blissful Buddhas of the three times. Alas! Such am I. Now, you the scientist deity host, from now on do not neglect me no matter what. Hold me with the tractor beam of your compassion. Right now draw me to the pure heaven of the Buddha angels. Then you should make the following prayer. Hey! May the scientist deity host look upon me. Please lead me on the path with your great love. When I roam the life cycle driven by strong instincts. May the hero scientists lead me on the path of the clear light of orgasmic wisdom. May their consort angel host back me on my way, deliver me from the dangerous straits of the between, and carry me to perfect Buddhahood. When you make this prayer with intense faith, you will dissolve into rainbow light at the heart center of the scientist deity host, and without a doubt, will be reborn in the perfect angel heaven realm. When any spiritual friend is oriented in this manner, he invariably recognizes the realm of truth and is liberated. Even though his instincts may be negative, he will surely be liberated. Here the great book of natural liberation through understanding and the between concludes the orientation to the clear light in the death point between and the description of the reality between of the mild deities. Samaya Jaya Jaya Jaya, the fierce deity reality between. The fierce deities are actually the same five archetype Buddhas Vairocana, Akshabhya, Ratnasambhava, Amitabha, and Amagasiddhi appearing in their terrific, Haruka, forms. Haruka is a Sanskrit term for a powerful, aggressive hero figure, perhaps cognate with Hercules. The archetype deity Buddhas adopt these forms to engage with the subconscious mind of a person in the between. By this time in the between, a person who has not been able to accept the mild Buddha's invitations to liberation or life in the Buddha lens is about to lose conscious control and fall under the compulsion of subconscious drives of lust and aggression. This is why he begins to feel panic and terror. In this strait, the Buddhas adopt a ferocious approach, forcefully breaking into the person's awareness and offering him a powerful escort through a realm that has suddenly become frightening. The Haruka Buddhas in the next days are of various wisdom colors, have 3 faces, 6 arms, and 4 legs. If you are unfamiliar with such fierce deities, or have strong affiliation with another religion, you should investigate the fierce angels of that tradition. All religions have such figures. In Christianity there are the cherubim and seraphim, which you can invoke on these days. The eighth day. Now the fierce deity reality between arises. The previous mild deity between had 7 stages of passage through its dangerous straits. Being oriented to those in order, if the deceased did not recognize the clear light on one stage, she recognized it on another. Limitless numbers of beings attain liberation thereby. Though many are liberated, beings are numberless, negative evolution has great power, sins and obscurations are naturally dense, and instincts are long ingrained. This vast machine of the cycle of life is neither exhausted nor increased. Thus, even if one has instructed them with great precision, there is a great stream of beings who are still not liberated and continue to wander downward. Thus, after the mild deity host and the scientist and angel escorts have made their appearances, through the transformation of the mild deity host, the blazing, fierce 58 deity Haruka host will arise. Now, they will be different, as this is the fierce between. The deceased comes under the influence of panic, fear, and terror. It becomes much harder to orient her. Her awareness loses all self-control, and she faints with dizziness. However, if she can even slightly recognize the clear light, she can be easily liberated. Why? Because when the visions of panic, fear, and terror dawn, her awareness has no time for distraction, it is forced to focus one pointedly. On this occasion, if one does not encounter this kind of instruction, even an ocean of knowledge will be of no help. Even the abbots, masters of monastic discipline, and the great teachers of philosophy will err on this occasion. They will not recognize the clear light. They will wander on in the life cycle. And even more so in the case of ordinary persons, fleeing in panic, fear, and terror, they fall into the abyss of the horrid states and suffer untold misery. The least of the tantric yoga practitioners, when they see the Haruka deity host, recognize them at once as their archetype deities, like meeting old friends, and they feel faith toward them. Merging non-dually with them, they become Buddhas. Further, those who in the human realm practice the visualizations of these Haruka deities, made offerings and praises, or at least made paintings of the deities, or saw sculptures of them and so forth, just by that, they will recognize the aerosol of these deities and be liberated. And this is the key point. Again, in the human realm, those discipline master abbots and teachers of philosophy, however expert they may be, when they die, they leave no signs such as body jewels, relics, and rainbow lights. While alive, the tantras did not appeal to their minds, they disparaged them, and cultivated no familiarity with the tantric deity hosts. Thus when those deities dawn in the between, they do not recognize them. Suddenly seeing what they have never seen before, they think they are enemies. They feel anger toward them, and thereby they fall into the horrid states. Therefore, no matter how holy a discipline master or philosopher seems to be, his lack of interior practice of Tantra may be the reason why he leaves no jewels, no relics, no rainbow lights, and so on. The least of tantric practitioners, even though superficially their acts may be coarse, they may be inexpert, they may indulge in inappropriate and inelegant behavior, and they may not have been able to practice the tantric teachings thoroughly, still, as long as they have developed no wrong views toward Tantra, as long as they have no doubts, just by having faith in the tantras they will attain liberation on this occasion. Even if their behavior was unseemly in society, signs will emerge at the time of death, such as bone jewels, relics, images, and rainbow lights. And that is because this Tantra has extremely great blessings. From the average Tantric practitioner up, those who have meditated on the creation and perfection stages, who have repeated the essence mantras and so on, they have no need to wander down to this reality between. The moment their breath ceases, the scientists, heroes, angels, and retinues will surely come to invite them to the pure angelic heaven. The signs of that will be a clear sky, a profusion of rainbows and lights, a rain of flowers, the smell of incense, the sound of music in the sky, rays, and the presence of bone jewels, relics, and images. The spiritual energy of the Tantras is believed to be so great that merely a positive association with the teachings generates a special sanctity in the practitioner. When such yogis or yajinas are cremated after death, it is commonly reported in Tibet that strange pearlite gems are found in the ashes, and sometimes images of Buddhas, bodhisattvas, or archetype deities. Therefore, the discipline master, the philosopher, the tantric practitioner who broke his vows, and all ordinary people, have no method better than this natural liberation. But the great meditators who have practiced the great perfection, the great seal, and so forth, will attain the truth body by recognizing the clear light of the death point between, and without exception, do not need to read this book of natural liberation. Again, by recognizing the clear light of the death point between, one attains the truth body. If one recognizes the clear light in the reality between when the visions of the mild and fierce deities arise, one attains the beatific body. If one recognizes the light in the existence between, one attains the emanation body and is reborn in the higher estates. Encountering this teaching, one gains the benefit of the evolutionary momentum of experiencing one's last life. Since enlightened Buddhas have boundless lives in response to the needs of beings, this does not mean that after liberation, one will never live again. It only means that one is not compelled to live an unenlightened life of suffering, driven by confusion and addictive emotions. Therefore, this natural liberation is the teaching for attaining Buddhahood without meditation. It is the teaching for attaining liberation just by initial understanding. It is the teaching that leads great sinners to the secret path. It is the teaching that makes an immediate difference. It is the profound teaching that leads to perfect Buddhahood instantly. It is impossible for a being who has found it to descend into the horrid states. You should read this in the liberation by wearing. To combine these two is like filling a golden offering mandala with chips of turquoise. The liberation by wearing, the natural liberation of the body, is included in the original text in 21 folios. It repeats the mantric formulae of the 100 deities of the natural liberation system. The mantras are to be written and bound up in an amulet, which the corpse then wears, assuring that the person will not be carried down into any horrid state. Thus, having shown the great necessity of the natural liberation, now we give the orientation to the aerosol of the fierce deity between. You should call the deceased by name 3 times, and then say the following. As above, you pronounce the following instructions at the site of the corpse, if there is one, or in a place familiar to the deceased, or even in your own study, visualizing the deceased as present. Hey, noble one. Listen without wavering. The peaceful between already dawned, but you did not recognize the light. So now you still must wander here. Now on this 8th day, The Haruka fierce deity host will arise. Do not waver. Recognize them. Hey, noble one. The great glorious Buddha Haruka appears, wine maroon in color, with 3 faces, 6 arms, and 4 legs stretched out, his front face maroon, his right face white, his left face red, his entire body blazing with light rays. His eyes glare, fiercely terrifying, his eyebrows flash like lightning, his fangs gleam like new copper. He roars with laughter, a la la and ha ha ha, and he makes loud hissing noises like shoo-oo. His bright orange hair blazes upward, adorned with skull crown and sun and moon discs. His body is adorned with black snakes and a freshly severed head garland. His first right hand holds a wheel, the middle an axe, and the third a sword. His first left hand holds a bell, the middle a plowshare, and the third a skull bowl. His consort Buddha Kratashbari enfolds his body, her right arm embracing his neck, her left hand offering him sips of blood from her skull bowl. She clucks her tongue menacingly and roars just like thunder. Both are ablaze with wisdom flames, shooting out from their blazing Vajra hairs. They stand in the warrior's posture on a throne supported by Garudas. Thus they arise manifestly before you, having emerged from within your own brain. Do not fear them. Do not be terrified. Do not hate them. Recognize them as an image of your own awareness. He is your own archetype deity, so do not panic. In fact, they are really Lord Vairocana father and mother, so do not be afraid. The very moment you recognize them, you will be liberated. This Buddha Haruka archetype deity is adorned in the usual fierce deity way. His skull crown symbolizes his conquest of the 5 poisons of lust, hate, delusion, pride, and envy. His severed head garland symbolizes his overcoming of all his own mental addictions and negative attitudes. His union with Kratashbari, literally, goddess of ferocity, symbolizes the union of compassion with wisdom. His drinking of the blood from the skull bowl symbolizes the ability of ultimate reality wisdom to transmute the lifeblood of the demon of ignorance into the elixir of perfect freedom, with its blissful peacefulness and compassionate dynamism. Alternatively, blood is a symbol of the female, of transcendent wisdom, and the male Harukas drinking it symbolizes that wisdom is the source of the energy of compassion. The Haruka's snake necklace, hair ribbon, bracelets, anklets, and belt symbolize his subjugation of the serpent powers of the earth. The hand implements symbolize various realizations and concentrations he can manifest to help beings break free of delusions and shatter bonds. Vajra means thunderbolt, diamond, lightning, a substance of the strongest force in the universe, which is the force of wisdom become love. The flames emitted by these deities, their hair and eyebrows, are Vajra-like in intensity, like controlled lightning, like white-hot welding heat, like contained supernova explosions. Vajra is the highest symbol of compassion as the ultimate power. Sometimes it can be a 5 or nina-pronged scepter, with the same symbolism. The eagle-like Garudas supporting their pedestal symbolize the power of far-seeing wisdom to conquer any negativity. Once one has identified with such a terrific presence and merged within it, it provides a secure vehicle to traverse any conceivable evolutionary difficulty. When you recite this, the deceased will recognize them as his archetype deity, dissolve indivisibly into them, and become a Buddha in the beatific body. The Ninth Day. If the deceased feels overcome by fear and hate, and flees without recognizing them. Then on the ninth day, the Haruka of the Vajra Buddha clan will come to escort her. After calling the deceased by name, you should orient her as follows. Hey, noble one. Listen without wavering. Now on the ninth day the Lord Vajra Haruka of the Vajra clan will arise before you, emerging from within your brain. He is dark blue, with 3 faces, 6 arms, and 4 legs stretched out. His front face is dark blue, his right face white, his left face red. His first right hand holds a vajra, the middle a skull bowl, and the third an axe. His first left hand holds a bell, the middle a skull bowl, and the third a plowshare. His consort Buddha Vajrakrateshvari enfolds his body, her right arm embracing his neck, her left hand offering him sips of blood from her skull bowl. Thus they arise manifestly before you, having emerged from within your own brain. Do not fear them. Do not be terrified. Do not hate them. Recognize them as an image of your own awareness. They are your own archetype deity, so do not panic. In fact, they are really Lord Vajrasattva father and mother, so have faith in them. The very moment you recognize them, you will be liberated. When you recite this, the deceased will recognize them as her archetype deity, dissolve inseparably into them, and become a Buddha in the beatific body. The TENTH day. If those with heavy obscurations feel overcome by fear and hate, and flee without recognizing them, then on the 10th day, the Haruka of the Jewel Buddha clan will come to escort them. After calling the deceased by name, you should orient him as follows. Hey, noble one. Listen without wavering. Now on the 10th day the Jewel clan Haruka, Lord Ratna Haruka, will manifest to you, emerging from within your brain. He is dark yellow, with 3 faces, 6 arms, and 4 legs stretched out, his front face dark yellow, his right face white, his left face red. His first right hand holds a jewel, the middle a Khadvanga staff, and the third a club. His first left hand holds a bell, the middle a skull bowl, and the third a trident. His consort Buddha Ratnakrateshvari enfolds his body, her right arm embracing his neck, her left hand offering him sips of blood from her skull bowl. Thus they arise manifestly before you, having emerged from within the southern part of your own brain. Do not fear them. Do not be terrified. Do not hate them. Recognize them as an image of your own awareness. They are your own archetype deity, so do not panic. In fact, they are really Lord Ratnasambhava father and mother, so have faith in them. The very moment you recognize them, you will be liberated. A Khadvanga staff is a symbol of a Buddha's mastery of the central channel of the yogic inner nervous system. It has an 8-sided shaft, a half-vajra scepter on the bottom, and the top is built up of a vase of immortality, 3 shrunken heads that symbolize triumph over lust, hate, and delusion, and a trident blade above them. When you recite this, the deceased will recognize them as his archetype deity, dissolve inseparably into them, and become a Buddha in the beatific body. The 11th day. If, when encountering these deities, the deceased is led astray by negative instincts, feels fear and hate, and flees without recognizing them as her archetype deity, mistaking them to be the Lord of Death, then on the 11th day, the Haruka of the Lotus Buddha clan will come to escort her. After calling the deceased by name, you should orient her as follows. Hey, noble one. Listen without wavering. Now on the 11th day, The Lotusclan Haruka, Lord Padma Haruka, will manifest to you, emerging from within your brain. He is dark red, with 3 faces, 6 arms, and 4 legs stretched out, his front face dark red, his right face white, his left face blue. His first right hand holds a lotus, the middle a Khadvanga staff, and the third a rod. His first left hand holds a bell, the middle a skull bowl filled with blood, and the third a small drum. His consort Buddha Padma Kratashvari enfolds his body, her right arm embracing his neck, her left hand offering him sips of blood from her skull bowl. Thus they arise manifestly before you, standing in sexual union, having emerged from within your own brain. Do not fear them. Do not be terrified. Do not hate them. Feel delight. Recognize them as an image of your own awareness. They are your own archetype deity, so do not panic. In fact, they are really Lord Amitabha Father and Mother, so have faith in them. The very moment you recognize them, you will be liberated. When you recite this, the deceased will recognize them as her archetype deity, dissolve inseparably into them, and become a Buddha in the beatific body. The 12th day. If, when they are encountered, the deceased is led astray by negative instincts, feels fear and hate, and flees without recognizing them as his archetype deity, mistaking them to be the Lord of Death, then on the 12th day, the Haruka of the Karma Buddha clan deity host, and the Gauri goddesses, the Pishachi ghouls, and the Ishvari goddesses, will come to escort him. If they are not recognized, he will be terrified. So, after calling the deceased by name, he should be oriented toward them as follows. The Gauri goddesses, Pishachi ghouls, and Ishvari goddesses are various types of fierce female deities who will be described below in the text itself. Encountering them is like encountering extremely deeply repressed elements of your own psyche, terrifying because they are denied. At this juncture in the between, when there is no avoiding the encounter with the grim side of reality, the deceased has no time to insist on a nice self-image. So meeting these fierce female beings, these primal powers of nature, is extremely important, and it is essential that you overcome your initial revulsion. Hey, noble one. Listen without wavering. Now on this the 12th day, the Lord Karma Haruka of the Karma clan will manifest before you, emerging from within your own brain. He is dark green, with 3 faces, 6 arms, and 4 legs stretched out, his front face dark green, his right face white, his left face red. His first right hand holds a sword, the middle a Khadvanga staff, and the third a rod. His first left hand holds a bell, the middle a skull bowl, and the third a plowshare. His consort Buddha Karma Kratashvari enfolds his body, her right arm embracing his neck, her left hand offering him sips of blood from her skull bowl. Thus they arise manifestly before you, standing in sexual embrace, having emerged from the north of your own brain. Do not fear them. Do not be terrified. Do not hate them. Recognize them as an image of your own awareness. They are your own archetype deity, so do not panic. In fact, they are really Lord Amagasiti Father and Mother, so have faith in them, feel deep reverence for them. And that's not all. Our experts and regular viewers respond to all comments. Also check if you forgot to subscribe and set your bell to receive notifications about new audiobooks and other useful self-development materials that we release regularly. Join in the discussions, don't forget to give likes and, if possible and inspired, support the development of the channel financially. All useful links will be in the description and the first attached comment. Goodness, love and wisdom to all. And now move on to watch the next part of the video at the links below, or choose something from the playlists of the channel and those you see on the screen.